Today we're going to make a baked good that's reminiscent of Britain, a scone. Now what's interesting is when you're in Britain, scones are round. In the US, they're more of a triangular shape. And that had to do with the packages and also the fact that in America, we made biscuits. And to keep scones and biscuits separated, we did different sizes. Now, when making scones, it doesn't take a lot of ingredients. It takes 2 cups of flour, which we're going to sift through the Foley sifter. It's kind of a fun sifter. The Foley company came out with this sifter in 1934. And prior to that, it was cumbersome to sift flour because it took more than one hand. With the Foley, it was called the 1 cup sifter because you could put 1 cup of flour in here, simple use of hands, and it worked out really well. And one of the reasons you want to sift the flour when making scones or most baked goods, it adds more of an airy body to the flour, which makes them more tender and better in taste. So we've got the 2 cups of flour. On the sugar side, we've got a 1/4 cup of sugar. We're going to do almonds in the scones this time, so we're going to do a 1/2 cup of blanched, roasted, sliced almonds. So you're going to take the regular almonds, and if you remember from a number of videos ago, I showed how you take boiling water, dip the almonds in the boiling water, pop the skins off, and then put them in the oven, dry them out a little bit. Look at a prior video and you can figure out how to do that. It's going to take 1 teaspoon of baking powder. It's going to go just a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to do 1 egg. We're going to do 1 stick of softened butter. Room temperature, not too soft because it won't blend in as well and won't work as good. 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. And a little flour here so that when we're rolling it out on the cutting board, it doesn't stick. And then on the Epicurean dust, we're going to use 1/8 of a cup of peach dust to have a peach flavored scone. Now you might say, why not? Peaches are fresh, why not just use fresh peaches? It's a dry product. If you do fresh peaches, you're adding moisture to the batter and it's not going to turn out. By using the Epicurean dust, you're taking a dry ingredient, you're adding a dry ingredient, it works better. So we're going to start off first, we take the flour, put it in the sifter, we're going to sift into here, and then as soon as I get done sifting, well, then I'll turn it back on. So we're working with the sifter, and that's why it was such a cool invention in 1934, because you could do it with one hand, and it allowed you to sift the flour easily, and it worked out really good. Now, I obviously have a lot of kitchen gadgets because chefs do that, and I love them when they're old like this. I mean, you think about it, in 1934, this is like 80 years old, and look how good it works. So anyway, so we got the sifted flour. Let's put this over here. So the flour is sifted, so it's nice and light and fluffery. Next thing you do is we're going to put the dry ingredients. So we're going to take the salt. We're going to drop it in there. We're going to take the baking powder. There. I'm kind of moving everything out of the way as I go, and that way make sure don't mess up. Sugar into there. Our Epicurean Peach Dust. So we have our dry ingredients in here except for the almonds. We're going to do the almonds last. And then we have a little bit of flour here for our cutting board when we're rolling out our pastry. So you're going to take the wire whip. You're going to mix the ingredients just a little bit here. And you kind of do it gently so that you don't overwork the dough or overwork the flour. And since we've sifted it, it's nice and light. Now, there we are. So it looks pretty good. We're going to take a stick of butter. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut the butter in little cubes, or little knobs, I guess you could say. And the reason we're going to do that is going to blend better into the flour. So we'll take our knife. And you can see the butter is soft, but it's not melted. Take it, move our wire whip out, drop our butter in. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can do a dough cutter like this, once again, a very old piece of equipment, or you can do it easy and just use a fork. Sometimes the dough cutter works good, but sometimes what happens is when you're doing it, it kind of sticks to the dough cutter, and so the spoon, or the fork I should say, helps a little bit. So what we're going to do is, I find the fork makes it a little easier than the dough cutter, so we're going to use the fork to blend this together. Now, because the videos aren't supposed to... Okay, the dry ingredient is blended nicely with the butter. As you can see, it's got little chunks of butter in there, but it's broken up kind of good. So we're going to put 1 egg into our bowl, our heavy cream. Use a spatula, get all that out, all the goodness. Put this over here. And I'll leave it here because I got to use it to scrape the bowl out. We're going to mix that together, the egg and the heavy cream, which are the two wet ingredients you're blending together. And then at this point, before we add this, we're going to take our almonds, blend them into our product here. A little bit of a mix so that it kind of gets distributed nicely in there. Looks kind of pretty. Take this, mix it up. Rid of the wire whip. Making a nice little mess behind me here. So the dry ingredients are going into the flour, the sugar, the Epicurean powder, the salt, the baking soda, the almonds. So now what we're going to do is we're going to gently, with the fork, we're going to blend these two together so that we have a nice consistent dough. And once again, I'm going to turn it off. I'll blend it and I'll turn it back on. Okay, our dough's all mixed and ready to go. I kind of used my hands a little bit, it helped a little bit. So we're going to take that, we're going to put a little bit of flour on our cutting board here, spread it out. While you're doing this, make sure and turn your oven on 375 because you're going to want to do the scones for about 15 to 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, if they're not brown enough, just keep looking at it every couple minutes until you get the brownness that you like. So we're going to put it on the board here, and we're spreading it out. We're going to make it about 1 inch thick, and that makes for a nice sized scone. And we're going to do kind of in a circle here. And then don't forget, in the scones, we have 2 cups of sifted flour. We have a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. We have 1 tablespoon of baking powder. We have 1 teaspoon or half a teaspoon of salt. We've got 1 stick of butter. We've got 1 large egg, and we have 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. And then we have 1/8 of a cup of our Epicurean Peach Dust to make the peach flavor. And we have half a cup of blanched slivered almonds. So we're going to kind of make it into a circle here. That's about 1 inch thick or so. We're going to take our cutter here. We're going to put a little bit of flour on it. It helps from keeping it sticky. And then what we're going to do, we're going to cut it in half this way. Then we're going to cut it in half this way. And then we're going to take those, cut those there. And I've got a parchment lined sheet pan over here. We're going to take this, put it on our sheet pan. Slide that off. One of the things you can do is do one direction, one the other direction, and that way cooking, they won't touch each other and they'll cook a little bit better. And as you get them over here, if they're not perfectly shaped, now's the time to kind of bring them into a shape that you like. Though you don't want to play with the dough too much because you're going to affect the tenderness of it. And then if you like, after we pull these out, I'll show, we'll glaze them with a little bit of Epicurean dust and powdered sugar to give them kind of a nice look. And so as you can see, they're on the parchment lined paper. You can see they all look pretty good. They're pretty uniform there. And so don't forget, 375 for 15 to 20 minutes. If it's not brown enough, leave them in there a little longer and they'll get brown as you go. I'm going to turn this off and we'll turn it back on when they're done. Okay, the scones are out of the oven. As you can see, they're beautiful, nicely browned. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a glaze. So we're going to take powdered sugar and we're going to take a little bit of the Epicurean Peach Dust, and we want to blend those two together before we add the liquid because it blends better. There are two different dry ingredients that have different viscosity in the way they are, so it's better to blend them a little ahead of time. So then we're going to blend it here. We're going to take this. I have a little bit started. We're going to add that to this. And then after we get it all mixed up, we're just going to do a little glaze over those. And then we'll put them on a platter. We're ready to go. And this is kind of something nice. You could do it on a Sunday afternoon. You could do it any day of the week, actually. And because, as you see from the video, it took maybe eight minutes to make the product, actually, and then it took 15 minutes to cook it. So it's rather, it took a little something good. So, take our serving platter, move the scones over to that. Oops, they're flaky. And there we have the finished product. And I'll take a photograph of that and put it on the